Every story has a moment that changes everything. And today, we're about to discover it. The ballroom was alive. Soft jazz floated through the air. Crystal glasses clinked. Conversations blended into a smooth hum of wealth, power, and quiet competition. Birmingham's most influential figures filled the room. Executives, investors, decision-makers, and at the center of it all, Marcus stood still, sharp suit, calm posture, controlled presence, the kind of man who didn't need to speak loudly to be noticed. People greeted him as they passed. "Marcus, good to see you. Always a pleasure." He nodded, polite, measured, distant, because Marcus didn't come to events like this for conversation. He came to observe, to calculate, to stay in control. But tonight, something shifted. It started small, a movement near the entrance. Marcus's eyes drifted, almost casually, until they stopped. A woman stood there, poised, focused, professional. Zara. 2 years. No calls, no messages, no closure, just silence. Marcus's chest tightened for a brief second, but he steadied himself quickly. He had trained himself to do that. Control the reaction, control the moment. He was about to look away, until he saw the child. A small hand wrapped gently around Zara's fingers. The boy stood beside her, looking up with quiet curiosity, completely unaware of the weight of the room around him. Marcus frowned slightly. Something about the child felt familiar, too familiar. The boy shifted, turned his head, and everything stopped. Marcus didn't blink, didn't move, didn't breathe, because staring back at him was his exact reflection. Same eyes, same expression, same presence, not similar, not close, exact. Marcus's mind tried to process it, but for the first time in years, he couldn't. The room continued around him. People laughed, music played, glasses touched, but Marcus heard none of it, because in that moment, the man who controlled everything lost control. Marcus couldn't look away. The boy shifted slightly, tightening his grip on Zara's hand. That same subtle movement, Marcus had seen it before, in mirrors, in quiet moments when he stood alone, adjusting his cufflinks, in boardrooms, when he paused before making a decision. It wasn't just resemblance, it was identity, and that's when it hit him. Not softly, not gradually, but all at once. A voice, clear, sharp, unavoidable. Zara's voice, "I'm pregnant." The memory crashed into him without warning. The same table, the same silence, the same moment where everything could have gone differently. Marcus's jaw tightened. Another memory followed. "Are you sure?" He heard himself say it again, not as logic, not as caution, but exactly how it sounded to her, doubt. Zara's face flashed in his mind, the way her eyes changed. Not angry, not loud, just hurt. What does that mean? Marcus swallowed. The present and the past began to collide, right there in the middle of the ballroom. "I just want to be sure." Even now, replaying it in his head, he heard the mistake, felt it. "You think I'd lie about something like this?" He didn't answer then, and standing here now, he still felt that silence, heavy, unforgiving. The boy laughed softly at something Zara said. Marcus's attention snapped back. Reality stood in front of him, not a possibility, not a question, not something to analyze. Truth, living, breathing, looking just like him. 2 years. 2 full years of missed moments. First words he never heard. First steps he never saw. A life that moved forward without him. Marcus exhaled slowly, but it didn't steady him, because this wasn't a situation he could think his way through. This wasn't business. This wasn't strategy. This was consequence. And for the first time in a long time, Marcus felt something he couldn't control. Regret, real, unavoidable, too late to ignore. His gaze returned to Zara, then to the boy, and one thought settled in, clear and final. He didn't just walk away from her. He walked away from everything standing in front of him right now. A man can build everything: success, power, respect. He can create a life so structured, so controlled, that nothing feels uncertain. But all it takes is one moment, one decision, one sentence spoken without thinking, to lose something he can never rebuild. A millionaire CEO walked away from his pregnant wife, not because he didn't care, but because he doubted, and 2 years later, he stood in a crowded room, staring at a child who looked exactly like him. Not close, not similar, exact. Now, let me ask you something. What would you do if the one person who trusted you the most was the one you questioned? What would you do if one moment of doubt cost you years you could never get back? Because the truth is, loss doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it comes quietly, through distance, through silence, through the absence of moments you didn't realize mattered. And by the time you understand what you lost, life has already moved forward without you. Some people call it bad timing. Some call it misunderstanding. But deep down, it comes down to one thing: choice. The choice to trust, or the choice to doubt. And tonight, you're about to witness what happens when that choice goes wrong. So stay with me until the end, because this isn't just a story about love. It's about consequences. It's about growth. And it's about whether a man who walked away can ever earn his way back. But before we go any further, if stories like this speak to you, take a second to like this video. It helps more people discover stories that actually mean something, and I want to hear from you. Right now, before we continue, do you think Marcus deserves a second chance? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because here, we don't just tell stories, we make you feel them. Welcome to Mr. Obama Stories, where stories don't just get told, they come alive. This is the home of powerful American stories, stories of struggle, success, mystery, history, and the unforgettable moments that shaped people, communities, and dreams. From inspiring life journeys to shocking real events, every story here is crafted to make you think, feel, and see the world differently. At Mr. Obama Stories, we believe every voice matters and every story carries a lesson. Whether it's motivation, history, real-life drama, or untold experiences, you'll always leave with something unforgettable. So sit back, relax, and let the story begin. Because here, every story has a meaning, and every meaning has a story. Subscribe and become part of the journey. Birmingham moved differently, not slow in a way that felt stuck, but steady in a way that felt lived in. Mornings carried the sound of passing conversations. Afternoons blended into the rhythm of work, errands, and familiar routines. Evenings softened everything. Porches filled, music played, and people checked on each other without needing a reason. Zara had always loved that about the city. It didn't try too hard. And neither did she. At 30, her life didn't fit into a perfect box, but it fit her. Her mornings started early, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, already scanning schedules before the day fully began. By the time most people were easing into their routines, Zara was already thinking 3 steps ahead. Because her world demanded it. She worked as a senior event coordinator for a luxury hospitality company, handling events where details mattered more than opinions, and timing mattered more than effort. Corporate dinners, charity galas, private functions, where everything had to feel effortless. Even when it wasn't, Zara had built a reputation, not by being loud, not by chasing attention, but by being reliable, precise, unshakable when things went wrong, and things always went wrong. A late delivery, a missing guest, a last-minute change from someone who believed their request mattered more than everyone else's. Zara handled it all the same way. Calm voice, sharp focus, no wasted movement. "Give me 5 minutes," she said once, already walking before the sentence finished. And somehow, 5 minutes was always enough. But that was only one side of her life. Because once the heels came off, the structured schedules disappeared, and the polished tone faded. Zara stepped back into something completely different. Home, and home was never quiet. It was laughter that started before the door even closed behind you. It was voices layered on top of each other, no one waiting their turn, but somehow everyone's still being heard. It was music, always playing, never forced. Some days, it was old-school R&B filling the room. Other days it shifted, depending on mood, energy, or who had control of the playlist. And there was always food, more than necessary, more than expected, because in Zara's world, you didn't ask if someone was hungry, you fed them anyway. Sit down first, talk later, someone would say, already handing over a plate. Zara grew up in that kind of environment, the kind where people showed up, not just when things were easy, but especially when they weren't. If you didn't answer your phone, someone noticed. If you seemed off, someone asked. And if you tried to handle everything alone, someone would pull up anyway. That was love, real, present, undeniable. And Zara carried that with her into every space she entered, even the ones that didn't reflect it. Because her work world, that was different. There, everything looked polished. People spoke carefully. Smiles didn't always mean warmth. And presence didn't always mean connection. Zara noticed it early in her career. The way people performed confidence instead of feeling it. The way conversations sounded complete but said very little. The way success often came with distance. But instead of rejecting that world, she learned how to move through it. Effortlessly, she could stand in a room full of executives and speak their language without losing herself. She could adjust her tone, her posture, her timing, without ever feeling like she was pretending, because she wasn't. She was adapting, and that ability, that balance between two completely different worlds, was what made Zara stand out, not just as a professional, but as a person. She didn't need validation from either side. She belonged in both, and maybe that's why people paid attention to her, not loudly, not obviously, but consistently. There was something about Zara that made people notice, the way she moved with purpose, the way she listened before responding, the way she stayed composed, even when things around her weren't. She didn't chase attention, but attention found her anyway. And up until that point, that had been enough. Her life was stable, predictable in the best way, balanced between structure and warmth, between independence and connection. There was no chaos, no confusion, no uncertainty she couldn't handle. Everything made sense, until one event, one introduction, shifted that balance completely. Not loudly, not instantly, but in a way that would slowly change everything she thought she understood about control, trust, and love. The event was already in motion before most guests arrived. Zara stood near the entrance, tablet in hand, eyes scanning every moving part of the room with quiet precision. Lighting, set, tables, aligned, staff, positioned, timing, on track. She adjusted a small detail on one of the centerpieces, stepping back slightly to assess it. Good, she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. One of the staff approached her. Final guest list is confirmed, they said. Zara nodded without looking up. Any late additions? A few, high profile. Zara gave a small, knowing smile. There's always a few. She took the updated list, scanning names quickly. Then her eyes paused. Marcus. No reaction showed on her face, but something in her focus sharpened. She had heard of him before, not through gossip, through reputation. A man who built his company from the ground up. A man who didn't waste time. A man who stayed in control. Zara placed the tablet down gently. All right, she said. Let's make sure everything runs clean. Because tonight mattered, not just for the company. For her, guests began to arrive, one by one. Then, in groups, voices filled the room, conversations layered, energy rising. Zara moved through it all with ease, greeting, directing, adjusting, solving. Every step intentional, every word placed carefully. Nothing forced, everything flowing. And then, he walked in. Marcus didn't enter like most people. There was no pause for attention, no shift in posture to command the room. He simply walked in. And somehow, that was enough. Zara noticed him immediately, not because he stood out loudly, but because he didn't. While others spoke with exaggerated confidence, Marcus remained quiet, observing, taking in the room without needing to be part of every conversation. His presence wasn't loud, It was steady, and that steadiness made people notice. Zara watched him for a brief second longer than she intended. Then she moved, because observing wasn't her role. Engaging was. She approached him with the same calm confidence she carried through every interaction. "Good evening," she said smoothly. "I hope everything is to your liking." Marcus turned toward her. His eyes met hers, and for a brief moment he didn't respond, not because he didn't hear her, but because he was assessing, not the room, her. "It is now," he said. Zara raised an eyebrow slightly. There it was, a line, delivered simply, but intentional. She tilted her head just a little, a hint of amusement in her expression. "Careful," she replied. That line almost worked. For a split second, Marcus's expression changed, not dramatically, but enough. The corner of his mouth lifted, a real reaction, not practiced, not controlled. Zara noticed, and she didn't press it. Instead, she shifted naturally. "If you need anything during the event, I'll be nearby," she added. "Everything is structured to run smoothly." Marcus glanced around the room briefly. "I can see that." Zara nodded once. "Enjoy your evening." She turned to leave. But Marcus spoke again. "You're in charge of all this?" Zara paused, turning back slightly. "Yes." Marcus studied her for a moment. "Everything feels precise." Zara smiled faintly. "That's the goal." There was a brief silence. Not awkward, not empty, just present. Marcus broke it. "You make it look easy." Zara met his gaze again. "It's not," she said simply, "but it doesn't need to look difficult." Marcus absorbed that, because that answer, it wasn't surface level. It was intentional. He nodded once. Zara gave a small, polite smile before continuing on her path. But, as she moved away, Marcus's eyes followed her, not obviously, not in a way that drew attention, but enough to show something had shifted. The event continued. Speeches were delivered. Conversations deepened. Deals were hinted at. Relationships strengthened. But, throughout it all, there were moments, small ones, brief exchanges. Zara checking in, Marcus responding, nothing excessive, nothing forced, but consistent. At one point, Zara approached again, her tone slightly lighter. "Still holding up?" she asked. Marcus glanced at his watch. "Efficiently." Zara smirked. "That sounds like a very Marcus answer." He looked at her, curious. "You've studied me?" Zara shrugged lightly. "I pay attention to the people who matter to the event." Marcus leaned back slightly in his chair. "And I matter to the event?" Zara met his gaze without hesitation. "You're one of the reasons it exists." Marcus held that eye contact for a second longer. There it was again, that subtle shift, not in power, but in recognition. Zara wasn't impressed by him. She understood him, and that was different. Later in the evening, the room softened. The formal structure gave way to more relaxed interactions. Marcus stood near one of the quieter sections, a drink in hand, watching the room with the same measured calm. Zara joined him, not abruptly, not hesitantly, naturally. "Everything still meeting your standards?" she asked. Marcus glanced at her. "You assume I have high standards." Zara smiled slightly. "You built what you built. That doesn't happen without them." Marcus nodded once. "Fair." A brief pause, then he asked, "You always this composed?" Zara let out a small breath, almost a laugh. "No." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "No?" "Just when I'm working," she replied. "And when you're not?" Zara looked at him, just for a moment longer than before. "Then I'm different." Marcus didn't ask how, but the question stayed there, between them, unanswered. And that was the beginning. Not loud, not rushed, but clear. Two people from different worlds, recognizing something in each other, not fully understood yet, but impossible to ignore. It didn't happen all at once. There was no sudden shift, no dramatic moment where everything changed overnight. What started between Zara and Marcus built slowly, intentionally. After the event, Marcus didn't reach out immediately, and Zara didn't expect him to. Her life continued the same way it always had. Structured, demanding, balanced between work and home. But a few days later, her phone rang. Unknown number. Zara answered calmly. Hello? A brief pause. Then, Marcus. She didn't sound surprised. I figured, she replied. That alone made him pause. You saved my number? He asked. Zara leaned back slightly, a faint smile forming. No, she said. But you sound like someone who doesn't like being ignored. Marcus let out a quiet breath that almost passed as a laugh. You're not wrong. A small silence followed, comfortable. Then he spoke again. Dinner, he said. When are you free? Zara didn't answer immediately, not to create tension, but because she was thinking. My schedule isn't flexible, she said. Marcus responded without hesitation. Then, I'll adjust mine. That caught her attention, because men like Marcus didn't adjust easily. Tomorrow evening, she said. Location? He asked. Zara gave him the name. Simple. Direct. Marcus agreed. And just like that, it began. Their first dinner wasn't about impressing each other. At least, not in the way most people expected. There were no exaggerated stories, no attempts to dominate the conversation. Instead, there were questions. Real ones. Marcus leaned back slightly, watching her. You handle pressure well, he said. Zara glanced at him. That's an observation, not a question. Marcus nodded. Then let me ask one. How? Zara took a sip of her drink before answering. I don't panic over things I can solve, she said. And the things I can't solve, I don't waste time stressing over. Marcus studied her. That sounds simple. It's not, she replied. But it's necessary. Marcus nodded slowly. He understood that, because his world required the same discipline. But the difference was, Zara carried it differently. Not rigid, not cold, just steady. Do you ever relax? She asked him. Marcus didn't hesitate. I run a company. Zara tilted her head slightly. That wasn't my question. Marcus paused, not because he didn't understand, but because no one usually challenged him like that. I don't prioritize it, he admitted. Zara nodded. I can tell. Marcus leaned forward slightly. And what does that mean? Zara met his gaze. It means you're always working, even when you're not. Marcus didn't respond immediately, because that was accurate, and he wasn't used to people seeing that without explanation. The dinners didn't stop. They continued, not every day, not excessively, but consistently enough to matter. Each time, the conversations deepened. Marcus spoke about his work, not to impress, but because it was a part of him. Zara listened, but she didn't let him stay there too long. You always go back to business, she pointed out one evening. It's what I know, he replied. Zara nodded. And what don't you know? Marcus looked at her. That question didn't come with an easy answer, and that was the point. Over time, Marcus introduced Zara to his world, not through words, through experience. Quiet restaurants where privacy mattered more than attention. Spaces where everything was controlled, predictable, refined. Zara adapted easily. She didn't overreact, didn't act impressed. She simply observed and participated, but she didn't lose herself in it, because she had her own world, and eventually, Marcus stepped into it. The first time Marcus visited Zara's family space, he noticed everything. The sound came first, laughter layered over conversation, music playing without interruption, voices calling out from different directions. Nothing structured, nothing controlled. Zara glanced at him as they stepped inside. You good? She asked. Marcus nodded once. I'm observing. Zara smiled. That sounds like you. Someone called out her name immediately. Then another voice followed. And just like that, she was pulled in. Marcus stood there for a brief second, taking it all in, before Zara reached back, grabbing his hand. Come on, she said. No hesitation, no explanation, just movement. And he followed. He was handed a plate before he could fully settle. Eat, someone said. Marcus looked down at it, then back up. This is for me? Zara laughed. Don't question it. Just accept it. Marcus looked at the plate again, then at her. This is a lot. Zara shrugged. You'll survive. Marcus let out a small breath, then sat, and for the first time in a long time, he wasn't calculating anything. He wasn't analyzing outcomes. He wasn't thinking 3 steps ahead. He was just there, listening, watching, absorbing. At one point, he leaned slightly toward Zara. This is normal? He asked quietly. Zara nodded. Every time. Marcus glanced around again, then back at her. And you grew up in this? Yes. Marcus sat back, and something in his expression shifted. Not discomfort, not confusion, something else. Recognition, not of the environment, but of what it represented. Connection, unfiltered, uncontrolled, real. That night stayed with him, not because it was loud, but because it was different. And Zara moved through both worlds without effort. That balance. It stayed on his mind longer than he expected. What they had wasn't rushed. It wasn't built on intensity alone. It was built on understanding, on challenge, on presence. Zara didn't let Marcus hide behind control, and Marcus didn't try to change who Zara was. But beneath all of that, there was something neither of them addressed directly. Marcus needed structure. Zara trusted flow. Marcus believed in certainty. Zara believed in connection. And those differences, quiet as they were, didn't disappear. They waited, because sometimes what feels perfect in the beginning is only perfect because nothing has been tested yet. What started as interest didn't stay simple. It became routine. Not forced, not scheduled, but expected. Zara noticed it first. The way Marcus's calls became more frequent. Not random, not excessive, but consistent. The way he adjusted his time without making it obvious. The way he started asking questions that had nothing to do with work. Not surface-level questions, real ones. How was your day? He asked one evening. Zara paused slightly, because the question sounded normal. But coming from Marcus, it wasn't. Busy, she said, but handled. Marcus leaned back on his side, phone against his ear. That's your default answer. Zara smiled faintly, because it's usually accurate. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, what frustrated you today? That made her pause again, because that question, that required honesty. Zara exhaled lightly. A last-minute change, she said. Something that could have been avoided if someone just communicated earlier. Marcus nodded to himself. And you fixed it. I always fix it. Marcus didn't respond immediately, because that answer, it wasn't confidence. It was responsibility, and he recognized it. Over time, the space between their conversations changed. It wasn't just about sharing information anymore. It became presence. Zara found herself picking up his calls faster than she realized. Marcus found himself reaching out without needing a reason. There were moments when they didn't talk about anything important, but neither of them ended the call. One evening, Zara sat on her couch, shoes off, head resting back. You're quiet, Marcus said. I'm tired, she replied. Long day. Zara let out a small breath. Long week. Marcus didn't respond with advice, didn't offer solutions. Instead, stay on the phone, he said. Zara frowned slightly. For what? Marcus's voice stayed calm. You don't always need to talk. Zara didn't answer immediately, but she didn't hang up either. And that mattered more than anything he could have said. Marcus wasn't used to that kind of connection. In his world, everything had purpose. Every conversation led somewhere. Every interaction had direction. But with Zara, there were moments that didn't need structure. And instead of rejecting that, he started adjusting to it. Not completely, not fully, but enough to notice. Zara saw it too. The way Marcus listened more, the way he paused before responding, the way he didn't always redirect conversations back to what he was comfortable with. One evening over dinner, she leaned forward slightly. You're different, she said. Marcus looked at her. Different how? Zara studied him for a moment. Less guarded. Marcus didn't deny it, but he didn't confirm it either. I'm the same, he said. Zara shook her head. No, she replied softly. You're just not hiding as much. Marcus held her gaze. That statement, it landed deeper than he expected. As weeks passed, something shifted between them. Not dramatically, but steadily. They started making space for each other, not just in time, but in life. Zara adjusted her schedule, not often, but enough to notice. Marcus started prioritizing moments that didn't serve his usual structure, and neither of them said it out loud, but they both felt it. This wasn't casual anymore. One night, Marcus asked a question he hadn't asked before. What do you want long-term? Zara looked at him carefully. That wasn't a light question. What do you mean? She asked. Marcus didn't look away. Not work, he said. Life. Zara leaned back slightly, thinking. I want peace, she said. Marcus waited. And? He asked. Zara smiled faintly. Connection, she added. Something real. Marcus nodded slowly. And you think that's hard to find? Zara looked at him. I think people complicate it. Marcus absorbed that, because in his world, complication was normal, expected, sometimes even necessary. Zara returned the question. What about you? Marcus didn't answer immediately, because no one asked him that directly, not without expecting a polished response. I want stability, he said. Zara tilted her head. You already have that. Marcus shook his head slightly. That's structure, he said, not the same thing. Zara didn't interrupt. So, he continued, I want something that doesn't feel temporary. Zara held his gaze. Then don't treat it like it is, she said. Marcus went quiet. Because that required more than intention. It required trust. And that's where the shift began. Not visible, not obvious, but present. Zara was opening up more, letting him see parts of her that weren't polished, not controlled. Marcus was letting go, slowly, carefully, of the need to define everything before it happened. But beneath all of that, something else was forming. Dependence, not unhealthy, not overwhelming, but real. Zara started to expect his presence. Marcus started to rely on hers. And neither of them acknowledged what that meant. Because when connection deepens without being defined, it creates something powerful, but also something fragile, and neither of them realized that what they were building was about to be tested in a way neither of them was prepared for. The evening didn't start any differently. Zara sat across from Marcus, the table between them filled with untouched food, soft lighting reflecting off the glass. Everything looked normal, familiar, but something in Zara's posture was different, quieter. Marcus noticed immediately. He always did. You're thinking, he said. Zara looked up briefly. I always think. Marcus shook his head slightly. Not like this. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she adjusted her position, fingers resting lightly against the edge of the table. Marcus watched her closely, waiting, not interrupting, because whatever she was holding back, it mattered. Zara took a breath, then another, and when she finally spoke, her voice was steady. I'm pregnant. The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They landed exactly where they were meant to. Between them, Marcus didn't react immediately. Not outwardly. His expression stayed the same. Calm, controlled, but internally, everything shifted. His mind moved fast. Too fast. Timing, details, possibilities. His usual process, activated without permission. Zara saw it. The silence, the calculation, and something in her expression changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Marcus leaned back slightly, not pulling away, but creating space. Are you sure? He asked. The moment the words left his mouth, it was done. Zara didn't speak, didn't blink. She just looked at him, and the air between them shifted. What does that mean? She asked quietly. Marcus held her gaze. I just want to be certain. Zara's fingers tightened slightly against the table. Certain of what? Marcus exhaled. This is a big situation, he said. I need to understand. Zara cut him off. Understand what, Marcus? Her tone wasn't loud, but it was firm, clear, direct. Marcus paused. Because he knew. He was already saying the wrong thing, but he didn't stop. Timing matters, he said. Details matter. Zara let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but without humor. Details? She repeated. Marcus didn't respond, and that silence, it said everything. Zara leaned back slowly, looking at him like she was seeing something new, something she hadn't noticed before. You don't trust me, she said. Marcus shook his head quickly. That's not what I said. You didn't have to, Zara replied. Marcus ran a hand over his jaw, choosing his words carefully. This isn't about trust, he said. This is about clarity. Zara nodded slowly, but there was no agreement in it. Clarity, she repeated. Marcus leaned forward slightly. I just need to be sure of what we're dealing with. Zara held his gaze, and this time, there was no softness left. What we're dealing with, she said quietly, is a child. Marcus didn't respond. Zara continued. My child, she added. The emphasis was subtle, but intentional. Marcus caught it, and something in his expression tightened. That's not what I meant, he said. Zara shook her head. I know exactly what you meant. A pause. Heavy, unavoidable. Marcus tried again. I'm not saying anything is wrong, he said. You just, what? Zara asked. Marcus stopped, because every answer he had made things worse. Zara leaned forward slightly. Say it clearly, she said. Don't hide it behind words. Marcus met her eyes, and for the first time since she spoke, he hesitated. Not in thought, in certainty. That hesitation, that brief, silent pause, was louder than anything he could have said. Zara saw it, and that was enough. She sat back slowly, nodding once, not in agreement, in understanding. Okay, she said quietly. Marcus frowned slightly. Zara. No, she said, lifting a hand gently. Not aggressive, just final. I get it. Marcus leaned forward again. You don't. I do, she said. Her voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. Because, if you trusted me, she continued, this wouldn't even be a conversation. Marcus opened his mouth, then stopped, because he knew. She wasn't wrong. The room felt different now, not tense in a loud way, but tight, controlled, uncomfortable. Zara looked down briefly, then back up at him. I didn't expect this from you, she said. Marcus held her gaze. I'm trying to handle this the right way. Zara nodded slowly. But you're not, she replied. Another pause. Marcus exhaled. What do you want me to say? He asked. Zara didn't hesitate. That you believe me. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and in that moment, he knew what the right answer was, but instead of saying it, he searched for something safer, something more controlled, something that protected him, and that was the mistake. Zara watched him carefully, waiting, not for a perfect answer, just for the right one, but it didn't come, and slowly, the expression on her face changed again. Not hurt this time, not shock, something quieter, more final, disappointment. She nodded once, more to herself than to him. Okay, she said softly. Marcus felt it immediately. The shift, the distance, and this time, he couldn't correct it, because it wasn't about words anymore. It was about what had already been revealed. Zara picked up her bag calmly. No sudden movement, no dramatic reaction, just decision. Marcus stood slightly. Zara, wait. She paused, but she didn't turn back immediately. Then slowly, she looked at him, and her voice was steady. You showed me exactly where I stand, she said. Marcus shook his head. That's not true. Zara held his gaze. It is, she replied. A brief silence. Then, you just didn't realize you were showing it. And with that, the moment shifted, not into resolution, but into something else, something heavier, something irreversible. Because what Marcus thought was a conversation had already become something else, a fracture, and neither of them could undo what had just been said, or what hadn't. The silence didn't fade after that night. It followed them, not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. Zara didn't reach out. Marcus didn't either. not because he didn't think about it, but because he didn't know how to step back into something he had already disrupted. Days passed, then more, and what once felt natural between them now felt distant. Marcus sat in his office, staring at his phone. Zara's name sat there, unchanged, accessible, but untouched. He picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. His mind moved through possibilities. What to say, how to say it, how to fix something that didn't feel simple anymore. Because this wasn't about logistics. This wasn't a situation he could structure, plan, or resolve through strategy. This required something else, something he wasn't used to leading with, and instead of moving forward, he stayed still. Zara didn't wait. Not for a call, not for an explanation. She had already understood everything she needed to, and that clarity, it changed how she moved. Her routine didn't break. Her work didn't slow. Her life didn't pause. But something inside her shifted. The space Marcus once occupied was no longer open in the same way. Eventually, they saw each other again, not by accident. By decision, Marcus asked to meet, and this time, Zara agreed. The setting was different, quieter, more contained, no distractions, no background noise to soften what needed to be said. Zara sat across from him again, the same position as before, but nothing about the moment felt familiar. Marcus looked at her. "You've been avoiding me," he said. Zara met his gaze calmly. "No," she replied. "I've been giving you space." Marcus frowned slightly. "I didn't ask for space." Zara tilted her head. "You didn't ask for trust either," she said. Marcus leaned back slightly. "That's not fair." Zara's expression didn't change. "It is," she replied. Marcus exhaled slowly. "I've been thinking about everything," he said. Zara nodded once. "I'm sure you have." Marcus paused, then continued. "I didn't handle that conversation well." Zara didn't interrupt. So he went on. "But this isn't something small," he added. "This affects everything." Zara leaned forward slightly. "It affects everything for me too," she said. Marcus nodded. "I know that." Zara held his gaze. "Do you?" she asked. Marcus didn't answer immediately, because knowing and understanding were not the same. Zara sat back slightly. Her tone remained steady. "I came to you with something real," she said, "and you responded with doubt." Marcus shook his head. "I responded with questions." Zara didn't hesitate. "You questioned me," she said. Marcus leaned forward. "I needed clarity." Zara's eyes stayed on his, and I needed support. That landed, clear, direct. Marcus looked away briefly, then back at her. "I'm trying to approach this responsibly," he said. Zara nodded. "But not respectfully," she replied. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. "That's not what I'm doing." Zara's voice didn't rise, but it didn't soften either. "It is," she said. A pause settled between them, not empty, not neutral, but filled with everything they weren't agreeing on. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. "This is moving fast," he said. Zara looked at him. "It doesn't feel fast to me," she replied. Marcus frowned slightly. "How?" Zara held his gaze. "Because I'm not trying to slow it down to feel comfortable," she said. Marcus leaned back. "And I am," he replied. Zara nodded once. "I can see that." That was the moment the difference became clear. Not subtle, not hidden, defined. Zara was moving forward with acceptance. Marcus was holding back, trying to manage something that couldn't be controlled. Marcus spoke again. "I need time," he said. Zara didn't react immediately. She just looked at him, processing, not the words, but what they meant. "Time," she repeated. Marcus nodded. "Yes." Zara let out a slow breath, then leaned back in her chair. "And what exactly are you planning to do with that time?" she asked. Marcus paused. "Think," he said. Zara gave a small nod. "About what?" Marcus hesitated, and again. That hesitation spoke louder than his answer. Zara studied him carefully, then shook her head slightly. "You're not thinking about this," she said. "You're thinking about yourself." Marcus's expression tightened. "That's not fair." Zara held his gaze. "It is," she replied. Marcus leaned forward, his tone firmer now. I'm trying to make sure I don't make a mistake. Zara didn't flinch. You already did, she said. The words landed clean. No anger, no emphasis, just truth. Marcus sat still, because there was no response that could undo that. Zara reached for her bag again, not rushed, not emotional, just decided. Marcus stood slightly. So, that's it? He asked. Zara looked at him, her expression calm, but distant. No, she said. This is where it changes. Marcus frowned. What does that mean? Zara held his gaze. It means, I'm not waiting for you to figure out something you should already know. Marcus stepped closer. Zara. She stood. And this time, there was no pause, no hesitation. If you need time, she said, take it. Marcus looked at her, searching, trying to find something that would hold the moment together, but it was already gone. Zara adjusted her bag slightly, then looked at him one last time, and her voice, it was soft, but final. I won't be here when you're done. Marcus didn't follow, didn't stop her, didn't say anything else, because for the first time, he didn't know how to fix what he had broken. The door closed behind her, and just like that, the space felt different, not quiet, not empty, just changed. Zara stepped outside, the night air meeting her immediately. She paused for a moment, not to reconsider, not to turn back, but to breathe. Her hand moved slowly to her stomach, resting there, steady, grounded, and her voice, barely above a whisper, carried more strength than anything she had said that night. I got you. Life didn't pause for Zara, not after the conversation, not after Marcus walked out of her future. The next morning still came, and with it, reality. The first few weeks weren't dramatic. There were no sudden breakdowns, no moments where everything stopped. Instead, there was adjustment. Zara woke up the same way she always did, early, focused, prepared, but now, there was something new in the background of every decision she made, every step she took, every plan she created. She wasn't just thinking for herself anymore. Work didn't slow down. If anything, Zara leaned into it more. Events still needed coordination. Clients still expected perfection. And Zara delivered. The same calm, the same control, the same ability to fix what others couldn't. But there were moments, small ones, where her body reminded her that things were different now. A wave of fatigue in the middle of a task. A sudden need to sit down when she usually wouldn't. A quiet shift in energy she couldn't ignore. One afternoon, she paused mid-step, placing a hand lightly against a table to steady herself. She exhaled slowly, not frustrated, just adjusting. I hear you, she muttered softly. Then, after a second, just give me a minute. And then she moved again, because stopping wasn't her instinct. Adapting was. But Zara didn't go through it alone. She never did. Her space changed, not physically, but in energy. There was more presence, more support, more attention. She didn't have to ask for it. It was already there. One evening, Zara sat on her couch, her hand resting lightly on her stomach. The room wasn't quiet. There was movement, familiar sound, comfort. You eating enough? A voice asked from across the room. Zara sighed. Yes. A pause. Then, that didn't sound convincing. Zara glanced over. I said yes. A plate appeared in front of her anyway. Eat again. Zara stared at it, then laughed softly. This is not a suggestion, is it? No. Zara shook her head, smiling despite herself. All right. Support didn't always come in deep conversations. Sometimes, it showed up in small, consistent ways. Food placed in front of her without asking. Messages checking in without pressure. Presence that didn't demand explanation. And slowly, that made a difference. There were nights when Zara sat alone. Not because she didn't have people around her, but because she needed space to process. She would rest back, one hand on her stomach, thinking, not about Marcus, not in the way she used to, but about what was ahead, what she needed to become, what this new life required from her. And each time, She came to the same conclusion. She could handle it. That confidence didn't come from denial. It came from decision. Zara wasn't waiting for anything to change. She was already changing. There were moments when reality felt heavier. Doctor visits where the absence was noticeable, not overwhelming, but present. A chair that remained empty. A space that wasn't filled. Zara acknowledged it. But she didn't dwell on it, because focusing on what wasn't there didn't help what was. Instead, she focused forward. One morning, standing in front of the mirror, Zara adjusted her outfit slowly. Her body had started to change. Not drastically yet, but enough to notice. She turned slightly, observing herself, then smiled. "Okay," she said softly. A quiet acceptance. Not forced, not hesitant, real. The journey wasn't perfect. There were days where energy dropped faster than expected, moments where patience was tested, times when she had to sit down and just breathe. But even then, Zara didn't break. She adapted, adjusted her pace, reworked her routine, moved differently, but kept moving. And through all of it, she never spoke negatively about what she was carrying. Not once. Because to her, this wasn't a burden. It was responsibility. It was purpose. One evening, sitting alone again, Zara rested both hands on her stomach. Her voice was soft, but steady. "We're good," she said. A small pause. Then, "I've got you." And this time, there was no uncertainty behind the words. Because even without Marcus, Zara wasn't alone. She had support. She had strength. And most importantly, she had made a decision to move forward. Without hesitation, without waiting, without looking back, and that decision would shape everything that came next. Time moved forward, not slowly, not quickly, just steadily. And before Zara had time to fully process how far she had come, everything changed again. The day started like any other. Zara woke up early, shifting slightly as she adjusted her position. Something felt different. Not uncomfortable, but noticeable. She sat up slowly, placing her feet on the floor. Then paused. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. Another shift, this time clearer. Zara exhaled. "All right," she said quietly. There was no panic, no confusion, just awareness. She stood carefully, steadying herself before taking a few steps. Another sensation, stronger. Zara stopped, closed her eyes for a brief second, then nodded. "Okay," she repeated. What followed wasn't rushed chaos. It was controlled movement. Zara moved through her space with intention, grabbing what she needed, checking what mattered, breathing through each wave as it came. There was no one beside her to guide the moment. But she didn't need guidance. She trusted herself. Hours passed, each one bringing her closer to something she had been preparing for, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. Every step of the journey had led here. And then, the moment arrived. When Zara finally held him, everything else disappeared. The room, the time, the effort it took to get there. None of it mattered anymore. Because, in her arms, was Mason. Small, warm, real. Zara looked down at him, her expression softening in a way it never had before. Her fingers adjusted slightly, holding him closer. Carefully, protectively, she studied his face. Every detail, every small movement, as if committing it all to memory in real time. Then she smiled, not wide, not dramatic, just full. "You're here," she whispered. That moment, it changed her, not in a loud way, but completely. The days that followed didn't ease her into anything. They demanded everything. Sleep became inconsistent. Time became unpredictable. Energy came and went without warning. Zara would sit sometimes, holding Mason, her eyes heavy but focused, watching him, listening to his breathing, making sure he was okay. Even when she needed rest herself, there were moments where exhaustion hit hard, where her body asked for a break she couldn't always take. One night, she sat on the edge of the couch, Mason in her arms, gently rocking him, her head tilted back slightly, eyes closing for just a second, then opening again. "Not yet," she murmured softly, because even when she was tired, she showed up. But it wasn't all heavy. There were moments, unexpected ones, that made everything lighter. One morning, Zara stood in front of the mirror, Mason resting against her shoulder. She attempted to fix her hair with one hand. After a few seconds of struggling, she stopped, looked at herself, then laughed. "You know what?" she said. "This is good enough." Mason made a small sound, shifting slightly. Zara looked at him. "Oh, now you have opinions?" she asked. He blinked, unbothered. Zara smiled. "Exactly," she said. "That's what I thought." Another day, she tried to move quickly across the room, only to stop halfway, adjusting her pace. "No more rushing," she muttered, then looked down at Mason. "You hear that? We take our time now." Mason responded with a small movement. Zara nodded. Good. Agreement. Those small moments, they mattered, because they reminded her, this wasn't just responsibility, it was life. Zara adapted the same way she always did, not by resisting change, but by working with it. Her routines shifted, her priorities adjusted, her focus sharpened. Work didn't disappear, but it became structured differently. She planned smarter, moved with more intention, balanced what needed to be done with what truly mattered. And through all of it, Zara didn't lose herself. She expanded. There were times she sat quietly, Mason resting against her, the room calm. She would look down at him, watching his small expressions, the way his face shifted slightly when he slept, the way his fingers moved without purpose. And each time, the same thought came back: you're worth it. Not once did she question that. Not once did she wish things had been different, because even though the journey wasn't what she expected, the outcome was everything. Mason became her center, not in a way that took from her, but in a way that gave her direction. Every decision she made now had clarity. Every step she took had purpose. And, slowly, without forcing it, without overthinking it, Zara stepped fully into something new. Not just motherhood, but strength on another level. Because she wasn't just raising a child, she was building a life, one decision at a time, one day at a time, and she did it without hesitation, without regret, without looking for what was missing, because everything she needed was already in her arms. Marcus's life didn't fall apart. That would have been easier to recognize. Instead, everything stayed the same. On the surface, his company continued to grow. Meetings filled his schedule. Decisions were made. Results followed. The structure he built remained intact. Efficient, predictable, controlled. Exactly the way he designed it. But outside of that structure, something was missing. Not loudly, not in a way that interrupted his routine, but in moments, small ones, late evenings, when the work stopped, when the conversations ended, when the silence settled in. Marcus would sit, looking out over the city, the same view, the same lights, the same life he worked for, but it felt different now, not empty, but incomplete. At first, he ignored it, focused on what he understood: work, growth, progress, because those things made sense. They followed logic, effort in, results out. But some things didn't follow that pattern. Zara came to mind, not constantly, but consistently, in moments that didn't ask for her, but brought her anyway. A phrase she said, a look she gave him, the way she answered questions without hesitation. Marcus didn't reach out, not because he forgot, but because he convinced himself it was better not to. I needed time. That's what he told himself. That's what he held on to. But time didn't work the way he expected. It didn't pause anything. It didn't wait for him to decide. It moved forward. Without asking him if he was ready, weeks passed, then months. Marcus stayed consistent. His routine didn't break, but his thoughts, they started to shift. One evening, he sat alone again, his phone resting beside him. Zara's name still there, unchanged, untouched. He picked it up, looked at it, then set it back down, not because he didn't want to call, but because he didn't know what version of himself would answer if she did, the one who doubted, or the one who now understood what that doubt cost. And that question It didn't have a simple answer. Because the truth was, Marcus didn't just question a situation, he questioned her. And that realization, it didn't come all at once. It built over time, slowly, clearly, unavoidable. And once he saw it, he couldn't ignore it. But by then, time had already moved forward. 2 years passed, not dramatically, not with major events marking each moment, but steadily, the way time always does. And in those 2 years, life didn't stop for Zara. It expanded. Mason grew, not just physically, but in presence. He was active, curious, always moving, always observing. Zara adjusted around him naturally. Her life didn't slow. It evolved. Work continued. Responsibility remained. But everything was now centered around one thing. Mason. He had a personality that showed early, not quiet, not reserved, but expressive. One morning, Zara stood in front of the mirror, trying to decide between 2 outfits. Mason stood nearby, watching closely. She held one up. "What do you think?" she asked casually. Mason tilted his head, then pointed. "That one, not good." Zara turned slowly. "Excuse me?" He pointed again. "That one better." Zara stared at him for a second, then laughed. "Okay," she said. "I see how this works now." Another day, Mason ran across the room, stopping abruptly. "I'm fast," he said confidently. Zara raised an eyebrow. "Are you?" Mason nodded quickly. "Very fast." Zara crossed her arms slightly. "Fast enough for bedtime?" Mason paused, then shook his head. "No." Zara smiled. "Thought so." Those moments, they filled the space, light, unforced, real. But there was something else, something that became harder to ignore as time passed. Mason didn't just act with confidence. He carried himself in a way that felt familiar. Zara noticed it first in small ways, the way he looked at things when he was focused, the way his expression shifted when he was thinking, the way he paused before reacting, as if processing more than he showed. Then one day, she saw it clearly. Mason stood still for a moment, looking up at her, his expression calm, steady, and for a second, it wasn't just familiarity. It was recognition. Marcus, not vaguely, not slightly, clearly. Zara didn't react outwardly. She didn't speak on it, didn't dwell on it. Because, for her, Mason wasn't a reminder. He was his own person, and everything she built, everything she became, was centered around that truth. Marcus wasn't part of their daily life, not in routine, not in presence, but in ways that couldn't be denied. He was still there, not through memory, through Mason, and as time continued to move forward, that connection remained, unspoken, unaddressed, but real, and soon, life would bring that reality back into the same room, whether Marcus was ready for it or not. The event came with weight, not because of pressure. Zara handled pressure without effort, but because of what it represented. High profile, structured, important, the kind of event where everything needed to align perfectly, and Zara was the one responsible for making sure it did. She stood in the venue early, tablet in hand, scanning every detail with sharp focus, lighting adjusted, seating confirmed, timing aligned. Her movements were precise, intentional, nothing rushed, nothing overlooked. Mason stood nearby, holding onto her hand, watching everything with quiet curiosity. His eyes followed movement across the room, staff walking, decor being adjusted, voices overlapping. Zara glanced down at him briefly. "You're staying close tonight," she said. Mason nodded. "Okay." Zara gave a small approving look. "Good." She continued moving, guiding the flow of preparation. Every step familiar, every decision quick. This was her space, her control. But as she reviewed the final guest list, something shifted. Her eyes stopped, not gradually, immediately. Marcus. The name sat there, clear, unchanged. Zara didn't react outwardly. Her posture remained steady, her expression calm, but internally, she registered it fully. 2 years, no contact, no conversations, no attempts to reconnect. And now, same space, Same room. Zara looked at the name again, not questioning it, not avoiding it, just acknowledging it. Mason tugged lightly at her hand. Mommy. Zara looked down. Yes? He pointed toward a nearby setup. What's that? Zara followed his gesture, then answered smoothly. Decoration. Mason nodded. Okay. Simple. Grounded. Present. Zara returned her attention to the list. Her fingers hovered for a moment. Then, she set the tablet down. There was no panic, no hesitation, just awareness. Because the situation was clear. Marcus would be here. And this time, there would be no distance, no missed timing, no unanswered questions, just reality. Zara adjusted her posture slightly, exhaling once, not to calm herself, but to settle into the moment. She had imagined this before, not in detail, but in possibility, how it would feel, what it would bring, what it would change. And now, it wasn't hypothetical anymore. It was scheduled. Mason shifted beside her, looking up again. You working? He asked. Zara nodded. Yes. He thought for a second, then asked, Can I help? Zara looked at him. A small smile formed. You can stay out of trouble, she said. Mason nodded seriously. I can do that. Zara raised an eyebrow slightly. We'll see. She picked up the tablet again, moving forward with preparation. Because the event didn't stop, and neither did she, but beneath that calm surface, there was something else. Not fear, not uncertainty, readiness. Zara wasn't the same person Marcus had left. Not emotionally, not mentally, not in how she approached life. She didn't need answers from him, didn't need explanations, didn't need closure, because she had already built something without him, and whatever happened tonight would not change that. The room continued to take shape, details locked into place, energy building steadily. Zara moved through it all, focused, composed, unshaken. But now, every step carried awareness, because, soon, the past she had already moved beyond would walk back into the same room, and this time, there would be no distance between them, only truth. The event came alive as the evening settled in. Guests arrived in waves, measured steps, confident voices, controlled smiles. The room filled with presence, not loud, but intentional. Zara moved through it all with precision, her attention split across multiple points at once. A quick adjustment near the stage, a quiet instruction to staff, a brief check on timing. Everything aligned. Mason stayed close, watching, absorbing. His small hand remained wrapped around Zara's fingers as he followed her movements. At one point, he looked up. So many people, he said. Zara nodded. Yes. Mason paused, then asked, Do they all know you? Zara glanced down at him. No. Mason tilted his head. But they listen. Zara gave a small smile. That's different. Mason thought about that, then nodded once. Okay. Across the room, the doors opened again. Marcus walked in. He didn't rush, didn't scan the room immediately. His steps were steady, controlled, familiar. Nothing about him had changed on the surface. The same composure, the same quiet presence, the same awareness of everything around him, without needing to show it. But this time, he wasn't here to observe, not completely, because something about this night felt different. Even before he understood why, Marcus moved further into the room, acknowledging a few greetings, responding briefly, keeping his focus measured. Then, his eyes lifted and landed on her, Zara, across the room, standing in the same calm authority she always carried. Focused, composed, unshaken. For a moment, nothing else mattered. 2 years, no contact, no closure, and now, no distance. Zara felt it, before she even looked, that shift, that presence. Then she turned. Their eyes met. No confusion, no hesitation, recognition. Zara didn't move, didn't react. She simply held the moment. Marcus stood still, not physically frozen, but internally caught, because the version of Zara standing in front of him was not the one he left. There was no question in her expression, no expectation, no emotion reaching toward him, just clarity. And that unsettled him more than anything else. Zara broke eye contact first, not abruptly, not emotionally, just intentionally, because she had work to do, and Marcus was no longer the center of anything in her world. Marcus remained where he stood for a second longer, processing, adjusting. Then his attention shifted, not by choice, but because something else entered his awareness. Movement, close to Zara, small. Marcus's gaze lowered slightly, and that's when he saw him, Mason, standing beside Zara, holding her hand, looking around the room with open curiosity. Marcus frowned slightly, not in confusion, but in recognition. Something about the child felt familiar, not in a way he could explain immediately. Just a quiet pull. Mason shifted his weight slightly, adjusting his stance, then looked up at Zara, said something softly. Zara leaned down just enough to respond, her tone calm, natural. Marcus watched that interaction, without realizing he was focused on it, because something about it held his attention. Not strongly, not urgently, but enough. Mason turned slightly, his face angled just enough for Marcus to see him more clearly. And, for a brief moment, Marcus paused, not fully, not completely, but enough for something inside him to register. He didn't step forward, didn't react outwardly, but his focus remained locked. Zara straightened again, guiding Mason gently beside her as she continued moving through the room. Marcus's eyes followed them, not intentionally, not consciously, but consistently, because something about the child didn't let go of his attention. It wasn't clear yet, not defined, just present. And that presence was about to become undeniable. The room continued around them, voices rising, conversations flowing, energy building. But within that space, a quiet line had already been drawn. Marcus, Zara, Mason, all in the same room, unaware of how quickly everything was about to shift. Because the moment Marcus saw clearly what was already in front of him, nothing would remain the same. Marcus didn't move, not because he chose to stay still, but because his attention was fixed, locked. The room continued around him. Voices layered, glasses touched, movement carried on without interruption, but his focus stayed in one place. Mason. Zara guided him gently through the space, her hand steady, her pace controlled. She spoke briefly to someone nearby, her attention divided the way it always was during events. Efficient, present. Mason stood beside her, watching everything with interest. Then, he shifted, just slightly, his posture straightened, his expression changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Marcus saw it. That moment, clear, not in pieces, not gradually, all at once. The way Mason looked forward, focused, still, processing before reacting. Marcus had seen that before, not in someone else, in himself. His chest tightened, not sharply, but steadily. His mind moved, but not in the way it usually did. There was no calculation, no breakdown of possibilities, just recognition. Mason turned his head, and this time, there was no angle, no distance, no partial view. Full. Marcus saw his eyes, the shape, the stillness behind them, saw the structure of his face, the way his expression held without effort, saw the presence, and in that moment, there was no question left. Marcus didn't step forward, didn't speak, but something inside him shifted completely. Not confusion, not curiosity. Certainty, the kind that doesn't need confirmation, because it's already understood. His breathing slowed, not to calm himself, but because everything else had paused. 2 years. Every decision, every reason, every justification, all of it came back, at once, not as thoughts, as consequence. Mason moved again, looking up at Zara, saying something softly. Zara responded without hesitation. Calm, natural, present. Marcus watched them. And this time, he wasn't observing, he was seeing what he had walked away from, not in theory, in reality, right in front of him. A child, his child, standing beside the woman who had once trusted him without question. Marcus exhaled slowly. But it didn't steady him, because this wasn't something he could adjust to in seconds. This wasn't something he could process on his terms. This was already real, already formed, already lived. Without him, he took a step forward, then stopped, not because he hesitated, but because the weight of the moment held him in place. Zara turned slightly. She saw him, not for the first time that night, but for the first time since everything became clear. Their eyes met again. No distance, no distraction, just truth. Marcus didn't speak immediately, not because he didn't have words, but because none of them felt enough. Zara held his gaze, steady, unmoved. There was no question in her eyes, because she already knew what he had just realized. Marcus's voice, when it came, was lower than usual, controlled, but not the same. That's. He stopped, not searching, not unsure, just adjusting to saying something that couldn't be undone. Zara didn't help him, didn't fill the space. She waited, not patiently, not impatiently, just firmly. Marcus looked at Mason again, then back at Zara, and this time, there was no distance between what he saw and what he understood. That's my son. The words didn't echo, they didn't need to, they landed. Clear, direct, final. Mason looked up, not fully understanding, but aware enough to notice the shift. Zara didn't react immediately. She didn't deny it, didn't confirm it, because the truth wasn't something she needed to explain. Marcus took another step forward, closer now, not aggressively, not rushed, but drawn. I should have known, he said quietly. Zara's expression didn't change. You should have, she replied. No anger, no emphasis, just truth. Marcus nodded once, slow, because there was nothing to argue, nothing to question, nothing to fix in that moment, only something to face. Mason looked between them, then tugged lightly at Zara's hand. Mommy. Zara glanced down. Yes? Mason pointed slightly toward Marcus. Who is he? The question settled into the space. Not heavy, not complicated. Simple, but everything shifted because of it. Zara looked at Marcus, then back at Mason. She knelt slightly, bringing herself to his level. Her voice, calm, steady. He's someone important. Marcus's expression changed, not visibly to anyone else, but enough, because that sentence, it didn't give him a place, it gave him a chance, and he felt it, fully, not as relief, as responsibility, something he hadn't carried before, something he now couldn't ignore. Marcus looked at Mason again, and for the first time, there was no distance in how he saw him, not as a possibility, not as a realization, but as his son, standing right in front of him. And this time, there was no control, no structure, no system to follow, only one thing left to do: face what he had walked away from, and decide if he was ready to step into it now, because this moment was no longer about the past, it was about what he would do next. The space didn't return to normal after that. It shifted, not in a way others in the room could fully see, but between them, it was clear. Zara stood upright again, her hand still lightly holding Mason's. Marcus remained a few steps away, closer than before, but not close enough to belong. For the first time since walking into the room, Marcus didn't look around, didn't observe, didn't calculate. His focus stayed on Zara. I need to talk to you, he said. Zara didn't respond immediately, not because she was unsure, but because she was deciding. Mason looked up at her. Mommy. Zara glanced down briefly. Give me a second, she said gently. She guided him slightly to her side, keeping him close. Then she looked back at Marcus. Say what you need to say, she replied. Marcus exhaled slowly, not to prepare, but to steady something he wasn't used to feeling. I was wrong. No explanation, no delay, just that. Zara's expression didn't shift, not because the words didn't matter, but because they weren't enough. Marcus continued. I should have trusted you, he said. I didn't. Zara held his gaze. And now? She asked. Marcus didn't look away. Now I know exactly what I walked away from. Zara nodded once, not in agreement. Just acknowledgement. And what does that change? She asked. Marcus paused, because this wasn't a question he could answer quickly. It changes everything, he said. Zara shook her head slightly. No, she replied. It changes your understanding. Marcus absorbed that. Because she was right, Zara adjusted her stance slightly, grounding herself before continuing. You didn't just walk away from a situation, she said. Her voice remained calm, clear. You walked away from me. Marcus nodded. I know. Zara didn't stop there. And you walked away from him, she added, glancing briefly at Mason. Marcus followed her gaze, then looked back at her. I see that now. Zara held his eyes. You didn't see it then. It wasn't a question. Marcus didn't defend himself, didn't explain, because there was nothing to explain. I made a decision, he said. Zara nodded. You did. A brief pause. But this time, it wasn't empty. It carried weight. Marcus took a small step closer. Careful, measured. I can't change that, he said. Zara didn't interrupt. But, I'm here now. Zara's expression remained steady. And what does that mean? She asked. Marcus answered without hesitation. It means, I'm not leaving again. Zara looked at him, not impressed, not convinced. You don't get to say that like it fixes anything, she replied. Marcus nodded. I'm not trying to fix it with words. Zara tilted her head slightly. Then what are you trying to do? Marcus met her gaze directly. Show you. Zara studied him for a moment. Because that answer, it wasn't wrong, but it wasn't proven. And how long do you think that takes? She asked. Marcus didn't rush his response. As long as it needs to, he said. Zara nodded slowly. That was the first answer that didn't feel controlled. But she didn't soften. Because this wasn't about what sounded right. It was about what had already happened. Mason shifted slightly beside her, looking between them again. Zara glanced down, then back up. This conversation isn't just about us anymore, she said. Marcus followed her gaze again. I know. Zara held his eyes. Do you? She asked. Marcus didn't hesitate this time. Yes. Zara took a breath, then spoke clearly. You don't step into his life because you realize something tonight, she said. Marcus listened, fully. You step into his life because you're ready to stay in it, she continued. Marcus nodded once. That's what I'm saying. Zara shook her head slightly. No, she replied. That's what you're promising. Marcus didn't argue, because she was right again. Zara adjusted her hold on Mason's hand. And promises don't mean anything here, she said. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. What does? He asked. Zara answered without hesitation. Consistency. The word landed clean, not heavy, not dramatic, just clear. Marcus absorbed it. Because that was something he understood, but not something he had given. Zara looked at him one more time. You don't get to rewrite what happened, she said. Marcus nodded. I'm not trying to. Zara held his gaze. But you can decide what happens next. Marcus didn't speak immediately. Because, for the first time, that decision didn't come with control. It came with responsibility. Real, immediate, unavoidable. Zara straightened slightly. This isn't about you proving something to me, she added. Marcus listened. It's about you showing up for him. Marcus glanced at Mason again. And this time, there was no distance in his expression, only understanding. I will, he said. Zara didn't respond right away, because words had already done enough. Now, it was about what came after them, and whether Marcus could stand in it, not for a moment, but consistently, because this wasn't the beginning of forgiveness. It was the beginning of accountability, and Zara wasn't moving forward blindly. She was watching, carefully, deciding. One moment at a time. The shift was subtle, but it was there. Zara didn't move away. She didn't step closer either. She simply adjusted her stance slightly, creating space, not distance, just enough room for something to happen. Marcus noticed, not as permission, but as opportunity. He lowered himself slightly, bringing his level closer to Mason's. Not too fast. Not too close. Careful. Hey, Marcus said. Mason looked at him, curious, uncertain, but not afraid. Hi, Mason replied. Marcus nodded once. A small, genuine reaction. What's your name? Marcus asked. Mason straightened slightly. Mason. Marcus repeated it. Mason, as if grounding himself in it. That's a strong name, he said. Mason considered that, then nodded. Yeah. Zara watched quietly, not interrupting, not guiding, just observing. Marcus shifted slightly, resting his forearms lightly on his knees. Do you like being here? He asked. Mason glanced around the room, then back at him. So many people, he said. Marcus gave a small smile. Yeah. There are. Mason leaned a little closer to Zara, then looked back at Marcus. They listened to her, he added. Marcus glanced up briefly at Zara, then back at Mason. They should, he said. Mason nodded, satisfied with that answer. A brief pause settled between them, but this time, it wasn't heavy, it was natural. Marcus spoke again. Do you like superheroes? Mason's eyes lit up immediately. Yes. Marcus raised an eyebrow slightly. Which one? Mason didn't hesitate. All of them. Marcus let out a quiet breath, almost amused. That's a safe answer. Mason leaned in slightly. I'm fast like them, he said. Marcus tilted his head. Are you? Mason nodded quickly. Very fast. Marcus studied him for a second, then asked, Fast enough to outrun bedtime? Mason paused, then shook his head. No. Marcus nodded. Yeah, nobody wins that one. Mason looked at him carefully, then smiled. Zara noticed, not the words, the ease, the way Mason didn't pull back, the way Marcus didn't force anything. It wasn't loud, but it was real. Marcus shifted slightly, his tone softening without him trying. What do you like to do? He asked. Mason thought for a moment. Run, he said. Marcus nodded. Of course. And eat, Mason added. Marcus let out a small breath. That's important too. Mason looked at him. And no bedtime, he said. Marcus shook his head immediately. I can't help you with that. Mason frowned slightly. Why? Marcus glanced up briefly at Zara, then back at Mason. Because I think your mom is in charge of that, he said. Mason followed his gaze, looked at Zara, then sighed. Yeah, he said. Marcus smiled faintly. Zara didn't react outwardly, but she saw it. Marcus wasn't trying to impress. He wasn't overcompensating. He wasn't stepping in like he had authority. He was meeting Mason where he was, and Mason was responding naturally. Marcus leaned back slightly, giving Mason space again. Do you like coming with your mom to work? He asked. Mason nodded. I help, he said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Do you? Mason pointed around the room. I watch. Marcus nodded seriously. That's important. Mason looked satisfied with that, then asked, What do you do? Marcus paused, not because he didn't know how to answer, but because he was deciding how to say it. I work, he said simply. Mason tilted his head. Like her? Marcus looked at Zara again, then back at Mason. Different, he said. Mason thought about that, then nodded. Okay. Simple. Accepted. Zara shifted slightly, her eyes still on both of them. Every detail, every reaction, not looking for perfection, looking for truth. Marcus stood slowly, not breaking the moment, just adjusting it. I should let you get back to work, he said to Zara. Zara nodded once. Yes. Marcus looked at Mason again. I'll see you again, he said. Not a question, not a promise, just a statement. Mason looked at him. Okay. Marcus gave a small nod, then stepped back, not leaving the room, but giving space again. Zara watched him for a moment longer, then looked down at Mason. You good? She asked. Mason nodded. He's okay, he said. Zara held that for a second, not reacting immediately. Then she nodded. All right, she said. And just like that, the moment settled, not resolved, not complete, but started in a way that didn't feel forced, didn't feel rushed, didn't feel artificial. And Zara, She didn't step forward. She didn't step back. She stayed exactly where she needed to be, watching, because what happened next wouldn't be decided in a single moment. It would be revealed over time, through action, through consistency, through presence. And Marcus had just taken the first step. Now, he had to keep going. Marcus didn't disappear after that night, and he didn't return with big gestures either. He showed up, not loudly, not in a way that demanded attention, just consistently. At first, it was simple. Short visits, brief conversations, moments that didn't try to prove anything, but still mattered. Zara didn't make it easy, and she wasn't supposed to. She didn't block him, didn't push him away, but she didn't open the door wide either. Everything stayed measured, intentional. Marcus understood that, because this wasn't about getting back what he lost. It was about building something he had never given before. Time passed, not in large jumps, but in small, repeated moments. Marcus learned Mason's routine, not by asking once, but by paying attention. What time he got tired, what made him laugh, what he didn't like. And Mason, he noticed too. One afternoon, while sitting on the floor, Mason looked up at him. "You come back," he said. Marcus paused for a second, then nodded. "Yeah," he replied, "I do." Mason studied him, then gave a small nod. Okay, that was it. No deeper question, no hesitation, just acceptance based on what he saw. Zara watched from a distance, not interfering, not guiding, just observing, because this was what she meant. Consistency, not what Marcus said, what he did, and slowly, that difference became clear. Marcus didn't rush conversations with Zara, didn't try to return to what they had before, because he knew that wasn't possible. One evening, after dropping Mason off to rest, Marcus stood near the doorway. Zara remained where she was. There was space between them. Not uncomfortable, just honest. "I know this doesn't fix anything," Marcus said. Zara crossed her arms lightly. "No," she replied. Marcus nodded. "But I'm not here to fix it overnight." Zara held his gaze. "Good," she said, because that mattered. Not the words, the understanding behind them. Marcus continued. "I'm here to do it the right way," he said. Zara tilted her head slightly. "And what does that look like to you?" Marcus didn't rush the answer. "Showing up," he said. Zara waited. "Even when it's not easy," he added. Zara nodded once. "That's a start." Marcus accepted that, because that's all it was, a start. Nothing more, nothing less. Zara looked at him for a moment longer, then spoke. "You hurt me," she said. Not loudly, not emotionally, just clearly. Marcus nodded. "I know." Zara didn't look away. "And that doesn't disappear just because you're here now." Marcus didn't argue. "I'm not expecting it to," he said. Zara studied him. Because this version of Marcus was different, not in what he said, in how he stayed. No defensiveness, no control, just presence. And that mattered, but it didn't erase anything. Zara stepped slightly closer, not closing the distance, but acknowledging it. "We move forward carefully," she said. Marcus nodded. "That's fair." Zara held his gaze. "No," she replied. "That's necessary." Marcus accepted that without hesitation, because he understood now. This wasn't about fairness. It was about rebuilding something that had been broken. And that didn't happen quickly. It didn't happen easily. It didn't happen just because someone realized their mistake had happened. Through time, through action, through consistency. Mason's voice carried lightly from the other room. "Mommy." Zara glanced back briefly, then returned her attention to Marcus. "He comes first," she said. Marcus nodded immediately. "I know." Zara held his gaze. "Then show it." Marcus didn't respond with words. He didn't need to, because this time, the expectation was clear, and for the first time, he wasn't trying to control the outcome. He was committing to the process. Zara turned slightly, preparing to step away, then paused, not out of hesitation, but intention. "You don't get the past back," she said. Marcus nodded. "I know." Zara looked at him one last time, but you can decide what you do with what's left. Marcus held that fully, because this time, there was no misunderstanding, only responsibility. Zara walked toward Mason. Marcus remained where he stood, not stuck, not unsure, just aware of everything he had lost, and everything he now had the chance to build, not perfectly, not easily, but honestly, and that was enough to begin, because second chances, they aren't given, they're earned, one moment at a time, one action at a time, one decision at a time, and sometimes, they don't look like what you expected, they look quieter, more careful, more real. So now, I want to ask you, do you think Marcus truly deserves this second chance? Or are some mistakes too big to come back from? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if this story made you feel something, if it made you think about trust, choices, and what really matters, take a moment to like this video, because stories like this don't just entertain, they remind us. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because here, every story has a meaning, and every meaning has a story.